First of all, Taiwan is a part of China. There is no president, and what you mentioned is not a diplomatic issue. What I can tell you is that no matter what the DPP authorities say, it cannot change the fact that Taiwan is a part of China, nor can it change the inevitable event of reunification with the motherland.
All right, let's talk about South Africa, China, and Taiwan, three names that have suddenly found themselves in the middle of a geopolitical tug of war. And, of course, like any good international drama, there's a rebranding involved. Because when in doubt, rename something, right? So, here's the deal. South Africa has decided to rename its Taiwan office, a move that has set off alarm bells in diplomatic circles. Why? Because when China is involved, every small change is a big deal. Now, if you're wondering why this matters, let me break it down for you. Taiwan, as we all know, is that one relative at the family reunion that China keeps insisting doesn't exist. It's independent but not officially, a democracy but under constant pressure, and somehow at the center of global politics. China has a very clear stance on Taiwan. You don't acknowledge it as a country, you don't get cozy with it, and you definitely don't let it have official offices under its own name. Now, South Africa has had a somewhat diplomatic relationship with Taiwan for years. It's not official, but it exists. The office in question, which represents Taiwan's interests in South Africa, has been known as the Taipei Liaison Office, a name that, let's be honest, already sounds like it's trying too hard to be neutral. But even that was apparently too much for China's liking. So now, South Africa is renaming it to something along the lines of the Taipei Representative Office, or something even more ambiguous. You know, just to make sure Beijing isn't having any diplomatic anxiety attacks. And this is where things get interesting. China, as expected, has been watching closely. Beijing has made it clear that any official acknowledgement of Taiwan, no matter how minor, is considered a direct challenge. And South Africa, being one of China's key partners in Africa, is obviously treading carefully. But let's take a step back. Why does South Africa care so much about China's feelings? Simple. Money. China is South Africa's largest trading partner. We're talking billions of dollars in investments, infrastructure projects, and economic deals. Messing with China over Taiwan is like arguing with your landlord while being 3 months behind on rent, and it's just not a great idea. However, not everyone in South Africa is thrilled about this move. Critics argue that it's another example of China tightening its grip on African politics. They say that this is less about diplomacy and more about Beijing flexing its influence over a sovereign nation's decisions. And they're not wrong. Think about it. If South Africa is renaming an office just to keep China happy, what else could China demand in the future? This is the kind of diplomatic game that starts small but sets a precedent. Today, it's a name change. Tomorrow, it could be trade restrictions, political alignments, or even direct interference in domestic affairs. And let's not forget Taiwan in all of this. For them, this is yet another reminder that their global standing is under constant attack. Taiwan already struggles with limited diplomatic recognition. Only a handful of countries officially recognize it. Every time a country bends to China's will, Taiwan loses more ground. It's like a never-ending game of diplomatic whack-a-mole. Now, here's where things get even more complicated. South Africa has been a strong advocate for a multipolar world, one where no single country dominates international affairs. Yet, by making moves like this, it's effectively showing that China's influence is unavoidable. The question is, how much influence is too much? On one hand, South Africa needs China. The economic benefits are undeniable. But on the other hand, is it willing to sacrifice its diplomatic autonomy to keep Beijing happy? That's the real debate here. Of course, China sees this as a win. Another country falling in line with its Taiwan policy is another step towards its ultimate goal, complete diplomatic isolation of Taiwan. It's a slow game, but China is patient. And with its economic power, it doesn't have to force anyone, it just makes the alternative too costly. So, what happens next? Well, South Africa will go ahead with the name change, China will nod in approval, and Taiwan will file yet another diplomatic protest that will probably be ignored. But the bigger picture here is about influence. This isn't just a name change, it's a signal. A signal that China's reach is growing and that even major countries like South Africa have to play by its rules. But what do you think? Is South Africa making a smart diplomatic move by keeping China on its good side? Or is this another example of global superpowers calling the shots while smaller nations have to comply? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's get this discussion going.